fans, welcome back to M237, back with another review. And this is kind of a random impromptu review because this is a film that I did not even know existed. I didn't even know this was coming out until just a couple days ago when I saw that some other horror YouTubers had done reviews, which I did not watch. But I saw in their thumbnails, crazy, wild, twisted, insane. And I thought, okay, let's go check it out. My girlfriend knew about it. She wanted to go check it out. But I had not seen a trailer. I did not know a thing about it. I didn't even know who was in it. Didn't know a thing about it. And that is exactly how you should go see it. If you've seen the trailer does this movie justice. Because I have seen one since. And don't watch any reviews. Don't watch any other trailers, because the trailer does do a good job. Because this is one of those movies where you're just going to be watching it and it is just going to take you on a ride that you have no idea where it's going. And I applaud it for that. The only thing I will say is, just to give you an idea of quality, it is set in Detroit, being set in Detroit and kind of having sort of an 80s throwback kind of feel, especially with the opening credit font and some of the music. Even the story somewhat, it kind of has this 80s throwback. Beautifully shot. It's shot very well. It is one of those movies that doesn't spoon feed you a whole lot, really, at all. And it is just relentless on this road it takes you down, where I was constantly wondering where this movie was going to go. So if you haven't seen the trailer, leave it as is and just go see it. Also, because it's kind of having a slow box office opening weekend. This opened on the 9th. As far as this goes, it was made for $10.5 million, and it's made $10.5 million. So definitely go see it. It's worth seeing in the theater. I really enjoyed it. There were some other ones in 2022 that I might have enjoyed more, but this was still an awesome theater experience. And technically, it's awesome. On a writing level, it's really good. And just the structure of it and how it progresses is a wild, just unpredictable ride. This review will have spoilers, so that's all I'm going to say. Definitely go see it. The rest of this review will be spoilers. This is one that you want to see as blind as possible, because that's what I did. It wasn't even until we got to the theater and I saw the poster on the wall that I saw Bill Skarsgård, Justin Long, and I was like, oh wow, they're in it. I didn't know that. All I knew about it was that it had two separate people arriving at an Airbnb at the same time. That's all I knew, and that's all you should know. So go see it. Spoiler starting now. So yeah, this was directed by Zach Cregger, if I remember that. Yeah, Zach Cregger. I know he used to be in The Whitest Kids You Know, the comedy troupe. I don't think he's really directed much outside of short films, so this is kind of his directorial debut. He did do one called Abraham Lincoln's War on Drugs or something. But stars Georgina Campbell, Bill Skarsgård, Justin Long. Grant, trusting that you've seen the film and that's why you're this far in the review, there is a very surprise appearance by Richard Brake. Joe Chill, Batman Begins, Rob Zombie's Halloween 2, the best part of Rob Zombie's 31 as Doomhead. As soon as he showed up, I was like, okay, we're going to see something bad happen. Zach Cooperstein did the cinematography, and Anna Drubik did the music. And the music really reminded me of something like The Shining. It has this really just big, deep organ, like blah, blah, blah. But other than that, the music's kind of subtle, other than some of those big moments. And yeah, I think it was put out by, it's 20th Century Studios, but it kind of feels like an A24 film. And I know a lot of A lot of reviewers are saying this is like the craziest movie that they've seen all year, craziest horror movie they've seen all year. But I've noticed a lot of other horror channels really only do either theatrical releases or like franchise films. They don't delve into the independents or anything older than like maybe the 80s. So this isn't the craziest thing I've seen all year, even for new releases. But it was still a wild ride of a film. And this movie really knows how to unfold in a very unpredictable way, which all the credit in the world goes to the marketing. Someone finally got it right. Because I thought the whole movie was going to be this character Tess, played by Georgina Campbell, and this character Keith, played by Bill Skarsgård, where it was going to kind of be this psychological horror movie where she arrives at this Airbnb in the slums of forgotten Detroit. He's already there. And, you know, he's doing this very sweet, very polite, very hospitable guest to make her feel comfortable. Like, hey, don't be put out. You can stay here. I'll try to make you feel comfortable. I thought something was going to unravel where he's a psycho, where something's wrong with him. That was my first thought as to where this movie was going. But then I thought maybe there's something supernatural because there's scenes like where doors will open and close on their own. And then just the second she goes down into the basement, it just unfolds more and more from there. I mean, we see this room. Well, there's this hidden room in the basement with like a filthy mattress and a camera. And I'm like, is this what Bill Skarsgård is up to? And then Skarsgård goes down there with her because she's locked in. And then we see like this. Then it quickly turns into like a creature feature where it's like this super tall, naked. Think like the ending to Wreck or Quarantine, something like that. Just brutally attacks Bill Skarsgård. And again, I hope you've seen the film if you're this far in the video. When this movie gets violent, it is pretty unrelenting. It is pretty bloody and pretty vicious. And really we have kind of two different stories going on. This movie makes a hard cut, and then we go to a different story, which that they then intertwine, and then we get a flashback with a little bit of explanation, and then it finishes. And I think it does that very well. Because then we cut to Justin Long, which it was great to see him in a horror movie again. Love Jeepers Creepers. Not a big fan of Drag Me to Hell, but I liked him in it. Not the biggest fan of Tusk, but I liked him in it. I've always loved Justin Long. He's hilarious. He's hilarious in this. A lot of the comedy in this is just how oblivious this guy is. He's like a TV producer, director, who kind of falls under like a Me Too allegation. Find out he has some properties out in Detroit. He goes out there to try to liquidate them to afford lawyers. Keith and Tess's stuff is still left as is. And there's just really funny scenes like where he finds all these hidden rooms and he wants to like find out if underground tunnels counts as square footage for sales. So he's down there measuring these tunnels and rooms, ignoring the fact that there's a creepy mattress with a camera or all these cages down there. He's just totally oblivious to it. And then we basically just catch up to, you know, where that mother creature finds him, and he runs and he ends up with Tess in this little cage. This little, like, Silence of the Lambs hole. And I'm so thankful that this movie, which I've said in a number of reviews that I like it when movies don't explain anything. Let our imaginations run wild. Let ambiguity take over. This was a movie that needed explanations because this movie was so left field with what I thought it was going to be or where I thought it was taking me that the whole time I was just like, where is this movie going? And even when I thought I had it, I was just like, I still don't get it. And it's not that it's like an A24 film where it's very symbolic or a metaphorical. It just keeps going off on these paths of unpredictability. We get like this hard cut back to the 80s where Richard Brake, who looks like a typical 80s serial killer, probably one of the best I've seen in a film, where he goes to pick up baby stuff. Like, if anyone went into a store like this, like, I need plastic sheets, diapers for a home birth, and just so creepy. Then he gets home, and we just see him go down the hallway. When he opens the basement door, we just hear screaming. And it does kind of... I thought it was going to go further in some areas. Like, pretty much this creature that we find out is just a product of incest. That Richard Brake was just bringing women down there, having his way with them, having kids with them, then having kids with the kids, and just creating like this Sawney Bean type clan. But I guess this is the only one that lived. And she's, you know, she looks deformed. She's kind of like Pluto from Hills Have Eyes. She gets mad if you don't let her treat you like a baby. Justin Long's not having it. So there is a part where she drags him out of the thing and tries to breastfeed him. Now, I can see why, if the people with the horror channels only see like theatrical releases, why this might seem crazy or it might seem wild or disturbing, especially if that's all you watch is theatrical releases and franchise films. Don't even go to like IFC or anything, which I think a lot of them are like that. But even then, it was still pretty gnarly. I mean, Justin Long's walking around down there, and he just comes across this room where there's like a breastfeeding instructional tape playing, which is unnerving. And this movie sets up scares very well. I mean, being down in these dark tunnels where you just have a weak little flashlight and you just see this thing kind of emerging from the shadows towards you, it sets up its scares very effectively. It's very atmospheric, especially down when we're down in there. And it pulls off all its scares very well. Then it kind of becomes like an escape film where, you know, she's able to get away, but Justin Long is left down there. She decides to help him the way she can. But then the movie just keeps going. Justin Long is such a schmucky character, but he's so funny in the role that you can't help but like him. That, like, towards the end, he makes this decision where they're on top of a water tower and he has to throw her off of it. So there's this great shot, you know, something you might see in like a James Wan film, where the mother just like dives off towards her in slow motion. But she's able to catch her, break the fall. She's alive. Justin Long goes down there to check on her. Mother just grabs a hold of him and like gouges his eyes, rips his head in half. And then she goes to hug Tess, and all she can say is like, ba ba ba, ba ba ba. And then it just cuts to black, where she just takes Justin Long's gun and just, like, the bang is interrupted by the cut to black, and then credits with her walking away. This is one of those movies where if you go in as blind as possible, it's going to take you on a ride. And I know there's going to be people in the comments saying, I knew where it was going as soon as... I doubt it. Because there's nothing in the trailer or anything to let you know that there is more to it than just these two strangers arriving at the same Airbnb. And it does kind of make it seem like Bill Skarsgård might be a villain of some kind. It does a great job at kind of doing this back and making him seem like a really, really good guy, but there's got to be something off with him. So then when that's no more, and there's this creature down there, this deformed mother creature, it that's the point when you know that any expectations are just out the window, and you just got to watch it. It does set its scares up well, too, because there's this one guy that chases Tess outside the house at one point, and then when she escapes and trying to climb through the basement window, he pulls her out, which that's another great shot where the mother's like at the window. You just kind of see her cower back in the darkness, and he tells her, he's like, I know she's down there. Everyone knows about her, but she's not even the worst thing down there. So then you're like, there's more down there. So we come back to Justin Long, where he's walking through the tunnels, and he comes to this door, and then he turns around, and the mother's kind of coming after him, but then stops and just kind of cowers away, disappears into the darkness. And then he goes in and finds like a bedridden, sick, old Richard Brake that he thinks is another prisoner. And he finds this wall of VHS tapes of all his victims, which ties into the camera in that one room, which he gets really disgusted. And the movie does go back and forth on whether Justin Long is guilty of like the Me Too stuff that he's accused of. Excuse me, like he calls himself a bad person, and maybe he was too persistent, but it wasn't as bad as everyone says. But when he sees these tapes, he's disgusted. And I thought I was going to go a little bit further with the breastfeeding scene, because he's like screaming no and trying to fight her off. So it's almost like she's doing something like that to him. But it didn't quite go that far. But, so this movie really, it foreshadows its scares very well. It executes its scares very well. Every scare is done very creepily and very eerie. Whether it's visual, whether it's atmospheric, it's done very well. It's shot beautifully. The score is very well done. It has that very Shining type feel to it. And just with this overall sort of 80s kind of vibe to it. I mean, it looks like a 2022 film. So it might not look like an 80s throwback as much as like It Follows. But with the music, the way it sets the scares up, just the way it just diverts into this crazy creature feature. I shouldn't really call it that, but like this deformed, tunnel dweller. And then just like the font of the credits, it does have this 80s feel to it that I really appreciated. And most of all, I appreciated that all it gave us was a flashback, sort of setting up Richard Brake as this serial rapist killer. Without showing anything, it gives us just enough. And then, later on, a little bit of exposition from this homeless guy saying how, yeah, everyone knows he brought girls down there and sometimes they never came out, and he just had babies with them and had babies with the babies, and it was just a cycle of incest. It doesn't go, it's not flashback heavy or exposition heavy. Thank God for that. And all the acting is very well, it's a well-acted film. Justin Long works greatly as like the comic relief character, because a lot of times if you're making like a straightforward horror film, which this is, it just happens to have a lot of comedy in it, the comedy can make or break the movie, and Justin Long is just hilarious in it. He was so much fun to watch. And really the best part of this film is the unpredictable ride it goes on, because I went into it so blind without the trailer. And then, after I saw the trailer, I realized, oh, most people just thought that this was an Airbnb film. Well, which it is, but I thought it was really just going to be Tess and Keith. So, I mean, I salute this film wholeheartedly. this was probably the most pleasant surprise as far as horror movies go this year. I mean, I was surprised by Black Phone. I did like X. I really liked Men. I kind of figured that they were going to be really good, being A24. That's more so my taste anyway for new releases. But this one was probably the biggest surprise because I didn't know a thing about it. And just when I thought I had it figured out, it took a turn, and then I gave up. And I just let this movie take me on a ride. And it was a lot of fun. It has a 92 on Rotten Tomatoes. It's just not really making a lot of money, which I see happen a lot. If it's different than your typical popcorn flick, it will get really good reviews, but it won't make any money. But you know, Scream 9 will break records, and it'll be like another 40-something% and just be another run-of-the-mill film, which is really depressing, the world we live in. But I'll say it deserves the 92%. This was such a fun film, and all the more reason to... Whoever makes trailers and is head of marketing, take note of this film, and then everyone else, if they can make trailers like that, just watch the trailer and then just go see it. Don't watch reviews, don't watch interviews, don't watch anything. And, you know, hopefully we'll have more pleasant surprises like this. I did see a lot of good trailers. I mean, it's not horror, but that Amsterdam movie looks awesome. Don't Worry, Darling looks really good. The Menu with Ralph Fiennes looks really good. Pray for the Devil looks like a run-of-the-mill, crappy PG-13 exorcism flick. But, yeah, this was a blast. I really enjoyed it. And thank you for watching.